Hello people, I am Iko, and today I will be talking about one of my favorite and most masculine forms of entertainment. For everything I do is to be as masculine as possible. I work out not for health or improving my life. I do it because I want to hurt people. As I've come to learn from my many nights fighting the homeless, there's a hierarchy. For every homeless person I defeat, there's always another, stronger, more impoverished person to fight. And after a hard workout, I need something equally as masculine to unwind. And usually, I only have the strength and energy to play some Guilty Gear 2 Overture. Guilty Gear 2 Overture is the first and only sequel in the franchise despite being technically the fourth game. Every game that came after it can be considered as spin-off material from Guilty Gear 6. And since there's yet to be a Guilty Gear 3, we can surmise that this game possibly sold like shit. And if I'm being completely honest, the game feels more like a spiritual successor to Kingdom Under Fire: The Crusades, because both games start off with strategy in mind before devolving into utter chaos. And, incidentally, both games were exclusive to the Xbox. As expected, Guilty Gear 2 can best be described as an action RTS MOBA with racing game and light muscle mechanics. That may sound like a lot of buzzwords, like I'm making things up. Trust me, believe in me, I am not. While watching this footage, your first question might be, what the fuck am I looking at? Good question, I'll tell you when I figure it out. Not only is this game for the strong man, but also for the thinking man, because it's truly not enough to simply beat a man into submission with raw strength, but also to outmaneuver them in strategy. However, try to button mash, and you'll soon find yourself getting comboed to death. Ignore the enemy a little too much and you'll be left dealing with a giant horde that is making its way straight to your home base. Not a problem, we can fight back, except we don't produce any income, which means we can't hire any backup, and we lose the game dominated and destitute. But before we can get to dominating or being dominated, it is vital to understand the lore.
Alright, Guilty Gear basics. We live in a world after Y2K actually happened after... I got lost already.
You were like 10 words in.
Guilty Gear depicts our world after the Y2K disaster actually happened, but instead of being a simple formatting error with computers that could potentially cause planes to fall out of the sky, it turned out to be a demon trying to come into our world via electronic devices. This caused a worldwide blackout, and in the absence of internet, video games, and microwaves, humanity quickly devolved into their base instincts, leading to a societal collapse as panic set in and countries were erased off the map. But all of this stops when UNACO steps in, bans all electronic devices, and instead teaches humans about magic. Using this magic, a guy named That Man turns Soul Bad Guy and his girlfriend into immortal gears as a prank. The prank goes too far when Soul Girlfriend and her army of gears nukes Japan again and starts a 100-year war called the Crusades. Soul Bad Guy, with the help of Kai Keys, current king of the Balkans, imprisons Soul Girlfriend in a dimensional prison, thus ending the war. But she escapes, and so then Soul Bad Guy punches her in the head, killing her instantly and bringing peace to the world. And that's all the story you really need to understand what happens in Guilty Gear 2. I may have oversimplified some things, like the events that occur in the pachinko games or some of the audio dramas, but that's the gist of it. Now, will I critique the main story of Overture? No, because to be honest, I'm not sure what actually happened. There's a lot of family drama and a lot of punching, which work in unison when the punching directly resolves said family drama. It essentially follows the same story beats as Devil May Cry, wherein a blue guy has a son and decides he's better off not raising him. Then, years later, a red guy meets a blue guy, they beat the shit out of each other and end up becoming a happy family. Upon starting the game, you'll be assaulted by the menu music. Then you realize this is the laziest PC port anyone has ever made, with no graphics or resolution settings. To enter full screen, you need to use Alt-Enter, because you're not going to find it in settings. Also, for the love of God, don't play this game on keyboard and mouse. You might notice one subtle difference between other Guilty Gear games. This isn't a fighting game. With brand new graphical and technological advances in game development, we're playing in 3D. Now that we have a brand new dimension, there must also be brand new gameplay. Select your preferred master and begin the game. Overture has mostly, kind of, not at all really, translated fighting game moves into a regular action game. We have our basic attacks which combo into each other. Move the thumbstick right, left, forward or back to do different attacks, but only when you're targeting an enemy. Otherwise, your character is gonna turn their entire body and attack nothing, which will make you look silly. To continue doing more damage, you have your special moves, many of which are the same moves characters had in previous games. So if you play Soul Bad Guy and like to spam Volcanic Viper, despite the fact that I've shown that I know you're gonna do it, stop doing it. You'll be happy to know that you can still gank people with Volcanic Viper. But using special moves requires tension. Such a mechanic surely means a fair and balanced experience when fighting other masters. Yeah, not really. Say, how do you get more tension? Well, by continuing to beat the person you've encountered. Maybe I've run out of tension during an encounter. Not a problem, I'll just beat the person that's right next to me. At certain points during fights, you may notice your opponent basically say, "Got a blast," and then run off, leaving a cloud of dust behind. Now, normally I wouldn't consider running a worthwhile mechanic to talk about. Like, what would I even say? Yeah, your character reaches his destination faster. This is something very few gamers can do in real life, but in Overture, I gotta talk about it because it's really funny. Imagine a man, 5'3", 260 pounds of pure muscle. Now imagine him running at speeds never before seen. How would he stop? Could he even? Overture takes that into consideration, making running feel like driving a car stuck accelerating with no brakes. Pray tell, how would such a man change directions at such speed? Why? He drifts. Running is a weapon since you can deal damage and knock enemies down by slamming into them. There's a certain type of fear that can only be experienced when you're fighting a losing battle and then you hear rock music start playing only to see a cloud of dust and soul bad guy barreling directly towards you. Likewise, I can only imagine the fear my opponent feels when I'm Naruto running directly at them with several explosives and a dragon in my pocket. Generally, running in this game can be very fun, but usually it isn't. Even after you get the hang of it, you'll still find yourself bouncing off walls or even going in the wrong direction because your drifts are too powerful. Pro tip, don't try and run in a crowded area. Still, through multiple intervals, I found myself wishing there was a middle ground between normal walking speed and meth head sprinting. Overture is not a beginner-friendly game. At the start, the game can feel very rigid. From the movement, the combat, targeting, running around, it all comes off as stiff, especially since the majority of attacks don't cancel into each other, therefore making combos much harder to discover. Unlike, say, Strive, where it's much easier to find out what attacks work with what. In Overture, you have to sit down and experiment a lot more. For example, you may notice that every time Sin does a front flip attack, it can be followed up with a jump, which then of course leaves room for another set of attacks. You start to realize that if you, for whatever reason, press the button that activates running, it actually cancels you out of actions completely, and basically allows you to follow up with another combo at the expense of some tension. This can be abused as long as you have the tension for it, so you're gonna have to learn the ins and outs of your character and be much more experimental in order to get the most out of them. Of course, that's complete bullshit and I just watch combo videos, learn 2 or 3 of those and use them repeatedly. It seems to be working out quite well. Now I truly do love being able to confront my opponent on the battlefield, because as many will agree, the truest form of chivalry is 2 big men hitting each other with things, and this game offers you many opportunities to menacingly walk towards someone while chaos occurs around you. But I have to tell you, this is a risky idea, because if you die, it damages your Master Ghost. Your Master Ghost is your home base. If it gets destroyed, you lose your round. Similarly, kill or get killed enough times and it'll lead to ending the match. That's the main objective in every game mode, but we're on opposite sides of the map. So, to do that we need to rely on our tribes to capture ghosts, which in turn give you more mana which we can use to get more units, and it works about as well as you can see. The most popular strategy is to try and bum rush the enemy as fast as possible. Does this work? Usually it does, but the majority of the time it doesn't, because the opponent will respond with their own bum rush and cause a shit show. Units have simple strengths and weaknesses, as in circle beats triangle, triangle beats square, and square beats circle, though this isn't always the case since different masters mean different advantages. So, what do we got? Well, for starters, Soul bad guy, Saul Goodman, Sal neutral dude. His tribe isn't very strong, nor does he have the best units. Doesn't matter because Soul is a fucking ape who can pretty much kill everything in his path. Adding to that, you gain a currency unique to Soul called gears. How do you earn these? Not a clue, but they eventually turn you into Goku. To describe the Soul bad guy experience, let me tell you about one of the first matches I had with him. I was once in a 2v2 battle with Soul as my partner, and while I was fighting a losing battle, I look over and see Soul taking on 2 masters at the same time on the other side of the map. While he seemed to be winning, he was not, and needless to say, we lost the match. Overture was the first appearance of Sin, son of Kai Kisk, and named after the fact that he was born out of wedlock. This is canon, don't worry about it. Much like the average priest, Kai saw the adult 6-year-old and got down horrendous. To quote Kai himself, damn, thus making him guilty as only quirked up white boy, busting it down sick. Anyway, their tribe differs from other tribes in that others are usually robots, friends, or their slaves. All we have are employees, meaning that their cost of summon is quite high because they all have competitive wages. But most of the units are pretty powerful, and both Sin and Kai have the ability to provide free healthcare to their men. The issues begin when you start to lose all your ghosts and can't afford to pay for more men. The best way to describe Paradigm is to tell you that I once got into a fight with 3 of his units, then I checked the map and realized that he had taken all of the remaining ghosts. Basically, Paradigm's units are dirt cheap, and he can flood the map with waves of units, and if you're careless, they will wipe out all of yours. If you want really incomprehensible gameplay, I recommend a 2v2 battle where you fight against 2 Paradigms, or a 2v2 battle where everyone is Paradigm. Paradigm comes with an attack where he drops a metal apple on you, and it does a fuck ton of damage, so you can bet we're all spamming that. Izuna is pretty good. His units are not terrible and he has some cool combos, but using him means listening to the same pun 50 times in a row. Usually dialogue is repetitive, but it tends to get drowned out in the sea of loud noises. Except this. He also has a giant dude who will instantly win you the game. Upon learning this, my strategy forever changed to get this guy out as early as possible and pray for the best. Fighting Raven or Valentine means you're going to be running away from little girls carrying scissors. Then, while you run away, you get zoned by Valentine or find out that Raven can turn invisible. Valentine is pretty reliant on using tension, but she's pretty useful at annoying the opponent as she can kill you before you land a hit on her. Now, this game is pretty fucking incomprehensible, from the barrage of noises to the hordes of enemies to trying to command your units to go somewhere, only to have them die while you're trying to select them. The maps can go from small to labyrinthine, which is pretty damn fun, walking to the most congested area, seeing the floor littered with dead units, then realizing that this area is fucked, and like most rides, it's better to watch from afar. Surprisingly, this game has functioning multiplayer. Unsurprisingly, the game is dead. But if you can find someone else to play with, I recommend the 2v2 20-minute CPU difficulty 5 battle. The amount of stress you'll have to endure when you're fighting for your life, and you ask for help, only to see that help arrived 5 minutes ago, in the form of 2 units because the other 5 had died on the way there.
I sent dudes to go help.
Where are they? Where'd they go?
They got caught up on the way.
It's the kind of game that forges a stronger bond between you and your teammate. A bond of shared suffering and anger as you keep losing ghosts and your partner is either too overwhelmed or too dumb to come up with a plan. Because the plan we're following, which is my plan, isn't very good. Some might even say it got us into the predicament we're in.
Oh, did we lose? Did we lose?
No.
What?
I think we won.
We just won?
We just won. We won.
We won. This game is stressful.
This is more like when you get sent home after a deployment.
Most people would agree that when a new Guilty Gear game gets announced, the hype isn't for the game, but for the rock album that's about to drop alongside it. Overture has some pretty banger tracks, but you wouldn't know it from playing the game, as usually you can't really hear shit. At first I thought the game's audio mixing was bad, but then I realized it's actually pretty realistic, because this is what I imagine a battle like this would sound like. While the game itself is fun, these story missions kinda suck. Not all of them, just the ones that try to change what the game is. For example, there's a scavenger hunt mission where you have to look through a big ass map for specific areas to find invisible chests. A shit ton of enemies spawn and, well, for story reasons you can't fight them. And towards the end of the game you'll have to do one of the shittiest bullet hells I've ever seen. How do we beat this? Well, we just spam gunflame the entire time. Critique: I can't be toxic in this game, at least not in traditional ways, but I miss the classic ways of being a dick, whether it be teabagging or taunting after fights, or my favorite, taunting on the rematch screen. It's a great way to start my day, giving me a little boost of joy so I can go out and fuck it up on the streets. Listen, I am not above anyone, nor do I strive to be the better person. I am here to have fun and make fun of. Some might even argue that doing this encourages your opponent to play better, as evidenced by that one time I joined the room set up by a streamer playing Bridget, and then I proceeded to beat the living shit out of them in both rounds, taunting and doing my little dance. Rematch comes and they begin to wipe the floor with me, giving me almost no time to react. Angered at my own folly and vanity, I was prepared to fight as hard as I could in a tiebreaker match, as the honor of my ancestors depended on it, for they did not live and die in hardship for me to sit here playing like an ape. Steadfast in my convictions, I prepared myself. Then, I got disconnected because I got kicked out of the room and I could hear the streamer call me an idiot amongst other things. But you know what? Fuck it. I will not take this L. We were tied, and one day I will bring honor to my forefathers and we will settle this tie. Anyways, I might have gotten off track. Where was I? Oh right, ending the video. Guilty Gear 2 Overture. This game is a fucking mess, but it's the best mess you can ask for because it's fun as shit. If the next Guilty Gear game isn't a hybrid between a management sim, turn-based RPG, and a first-person shooter, then I don't want it. Anyways, that's all the nut I've got to give today. Like and subscribe, and I'm out of here. See ya.